think it would be really cool to have the new library in town, because I could ride my bike there and I'd probably go there a lot more.
It would be awesome if they could get some like beanbag chairs for us to sit on, and like new movies and a bigger space for programs.
Crestone is a small Colorado town at the end of the road in a wide mountain valley the size of Connecticut. Its residents understand the meaning of solitude. They are surrounded by wilderness. Several 14,000-foot peaks on the eastern edge of town remind them of that daily. To better serve the children, and for that matter the rest of the Crestone Baca community, the time has come to build a new library in town. At least that's what an overwhelming number of Crestone Baca residents said in a survey taken by the Northern Saguache County Library District several years ago. But how can a small town in a rural library district strapped for cash pull this off?
My name is Peter Anderson, and I've been on the Northern Saguache County Library District for the last 3.5 years about. And I got involved with the library district because libraries have always been very special places for me. I've spent a lot of time researching, and I've been a freelance writer and an editor. Currently teach writing at Adams State. So I'm around words all the time, around books all the time, and that's the way I like it. There's a lot of people here that know a lot about many different topics and subjects, which makes a learning center like the library really important as a space for them to teach others.
So my name is Bert Wadman, and I'm an architect here in Crestone. I've been here about 7 years, and came here and built a house for my wife and I, and began to get involved with the town a little bit and involved in a number of projects in the area.
But I think more important is the diversity factor. We've got retirees, we've got homeless people, we've got a transient population, we've got a lot of young families, we've got artists, musicians. For seniors, I think it becomes increasingly important to have a community space because a lot of seniors begin to feel more isolated as they get older. It's really nice to be in a space where you have not just one aspect of the community, one faction of the community, but you've got moms and dads and kids and grandpas and grandmas, and they're all mixing together. And, you know, for seniors, I think that's important in terms of just feeling like they're part of the community. They're part of something bigger. You're living in our own little worlds. A space like the library, which is totally democratic, totally free, doesn't cost anybody anything, and welcomes everybody, you know, becomes even more crucial.
I'm Sarah Kane Fry. I'm the director of the Northern Saguache County Library District. I was hired in 2011. As soon as the library district was formed, the community started coming to the district board members and saying there's a need for a new library in Crestone. And in a community of 1,300 people, we have over 900 active library users. And so with the library being 4 miles out of town and in a double-wide trailer, it's bursting at the seams. It's only open just over 5 hours a day, and we have an average of 67 people come in. And so the need is there for a new library.
It's been a fascinating project and has involved a lot of research by all of us on the team. We visited, probably each of us has visited over 15 libraries, and we've learned a lot in that process, gathering all the main assets that each library has and learning what the mistakes were made along the way.
What are libraries for in this day and age? It's a good question to ask, especially in a small town where we have to raise a lot of money to make a library happen. Why do we need it? We've got the internet, everybody's got their own computers. Ironically, you know, even though there's all that information out there, the library is becoming more important because we're all in our private little pods now getting our information. And so the function of a library as a community space, as a learning center, as a meeting place is all the more important.
So Crestone has this reputation as kind of a laboratory for experiment in energy conservation and in passive design. So obviously that had to be a major component. So the building is fundamentally triangular in shape, which allows us to have 25% more south-facing glass, because rather than a rectangle, it's a triangle. And so 1/3 of the length of the building is right where we want it to be. So that was the first choice. The building entrance is very evident as one approaches by automobile. There's a drop-off point under a canopy at the front of the building, and one enters on the northwest side. So the northeast side of the building is the cold side of the building, and that is shouldered into the terrain. The site slopes gently from the northeast to the southwest. So the building is kind of pushed into the shoulder of the site to protect that northeast exposure. And that protects our building from the cold and insulates us. The building entrance is on the northwest from the parking area, and then the south facade is what we use for our solar collection and heat distribution system. So then the next question becomes the functionality of the library itself. And using the consultant's program for the building, in which they detailed every lineal foot of shelf space that's required for the building, we located every one of the required spaces, the main space being the children's library. The children's library is probably the largest space aside from the gathering space, and it's designed to intrigue our little ones. So we felt that what was needed here in Crestone was a building built with local materials. And we began to look at the log construction in and around the area, the original log construction, but in a different way. Instead of it as the exterior shell, what about using log as the structural material instead of steel? So it happens that a heavy timber of a certain size has a 2-hour fire rating. In other words, the heavy timber structure of a log building does not have to be covered up with drywall. So peeled logs became the desire for the structural system. And then a structural system had to be developed that could span the kind of distances that a steel building would do. So we went to the design of the honeycomb and studied the activities of the honeybee and the structure of the honeycomb. When one strips away all the webbing of the hexagonal prisms that make up the structure, and one looks at what's left, which is just the structure itself, it's an absolutely supremely efficient structure. And then by reconfiguring it and shaping it to our uses, we're able to create the larger spaces of the gathering hall, or the gathering space, and the central hall, and all the other spaces as well. So, glass, rusted steel, conglomerate stone, concrete, you can see, and heavy timber. So you can see that it's all a palette of compatible materials that are appropriate to our area. So if you then look at the elevations, you can see the use of these materials and how they're expressed and how the building is formed. And then we look at the image of the building from a distance, and we see that the mountain peaks behind it are reflected in the roof forms. And the northwest side of the building is opaque to that hot summer sun, and the northeast side of the building is opaque to the cold winter temperatures, and the south in every aspect from sunrise to sunset in the winter is capturing the heat that we need to heat the building. So that in sum is how we arrived at the final solution.
So we have started, the board has started to kind of create a big picture map of how we're going to get to the place we need to be, which is essentially a $2.5 million capital campaign. We've also tried in the community to get a steering committee together and have had some good success with that, but there's a lot of worker bees in that group who want to do stuff, but they need kind of the roadmap of, the big picture plan. So we're hoping that a campaign manager and the plan that we're putting together will help those folks have a clear direction on what their role is and what we need them to do. But our goal is to raise the funds privately through several mechanisms. One is, of course, major gifts, big, large gifts from the community. The other thing that we'll probably go after several government grants. I think we're also really looking for a community champion. You know, somebody who's going to really drive the process. We also are going to have several naming opportunities. So if anybody wants to come forward with, 1.5 million, we're happy to name the library after them, or anyone they so desire. But there's also going to be a lot of naming opportunities all the way to, sort of the lower amounts. Things like bricks and chairs and, all kinds of things. So if people want to get involved and be part of this, probably the best idea is to give Sarah a call or email her and tell her you're interested. But there's a lot of ways to get information about what we're doing and where we are in the process. One way, of course, is the Facebook page. But if you're not a Facebooker, you can get on the library website, and there's a lot of information there.
The library serves certain functions for our population. So it has to intrigue our children, it has to inspire our teens, and it has to satisfy that need for comfortable reading space for our older generations.